Hello, and welcome to part 9 of the comprehensive guide to the self-treatment of patella maltracking. In this section we look at programming, so we'll see how you program together all the exercises that we've looked at so far in the series. Before I give you the guidance on the programming, I just want to explain exactly what it is I'll be giving you. What I'll be giving you is guidance. It's not a prescription. A lot of times when people give an exercise program to somebody, people seem to expect that they'll be told how many sets they need to do and how many repetitions they need to do, and that the exercise program is exercise X for 5 sets of 10 reps, and then you do exercise Y for 3 sets of 10 reps. And basically what that boils down to is that a lot of exercise programs that have been given out are just a list of exercises and a list of numbers, which are effectively pretty arbitrary really anyway, and it's completely meaningless. But as that's what's just been kind of churned out over the years, when somebody is asking for an exercise program, a lot of the time that's what they expect. And then so somebody tells you to do an exercise, so for instance in part 3 we had several foam rolling exercises. What somebody might expect would be, oh, you'd do foam rolling exercise 1 for 15 rolls down the right hand leg, and then 12 rolls down, and just all these arbitrary numbers, and then they think they do that and good, click your fingers, that's it, it's done. Well, in reality it doesn't actually work like that. We're human beings and everybody responds slightly differently, and what you need to do is actually be accountable to yourself to how progress is going, and you need to be able to be thinking. So say you're doing an exercise and you do 5 reps on that exercise, you need to sort of be able to stop at the end of that set and assess and say to yourself, how did that go? Did I find that easy? Did I find that hard? Do I need to do more reps next time? Do I need to do more weight next time? Do I need to do less weight? And start learning how the body is reacting to these sorts of things. And you need to kind of do it yourself, because you can't just prescribe do this number for this amount this time. Having said that, because so many people expect this prescription, bang, 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 this is what you do, this is what you do, I am going to give you a little bit of guidance, but I just wanted to give that overall comment that you need to work a lot of this out yourself. So when we looked at the foam rolling in part 3, a fairly good way of describing it is you foam roll until you feel some sort of relief of the original amount of pain. So let's say when you first jump on and you're doing the outer quad, the vastus lateralis, and you start rolling a particular knot and the pain is just 10 out of 10. You can't just jump off and say, oh, I'm just going to give up, because then it will never get better. You have to stay rolling until that pain's gone reduced from 10 out of 10. I'm not fussed whether you just go on until it's reduced from a 10 to a 9, or whether you stay on until it's reduced from a 10 to a 7. But as long as you've got some relief from that pain, that foam rolling has produced benefit. And that's the way you need to approach it every time you do it. And hopefully what you'll find is, let's say on day 1 of your foam rolling, you go on and at the start it feels like 10, and then you roll for a couple of minutes on that side, and by the end it's feeling a 9, and then it's probably still like that again for the next 2 or 3 days. Hopefully by day 10, you might find that you jump on and at the start it starts off at 9 out of 10, as opposed to it was starting at 10 out of 10. And that's how it works, because you'll be breaking down the tissue knots and improving the tissue quality. And then when you jump on and it's initially 9, keep going until it reduces down to 8 out of 10. With that approach, it tends to work, and it will go in the right direction over time, but it does take time. Okay, so then in part 4 we looked at the special calf stretch, the special lower leg stretch for patella maltracking sufferers. It was actually a brilliant lower leg stretch for any human being really. But yeah, it's particularly good if you're suffering with patella maltracking, because often the cause of patella maltracking is that your knees cave in, and this calf stretch helps prevent against your knees caving in. So how to do that? I mean, this is one, it's fairly possible to actually just give a straight up prescription. Basically, get into the stretch, get to the point of the stretch where you can feel some discomfort. It shouldn't be agonising discomfort. If it's that painful, you're probably trying to push too much range of motion too early. But get to a point where you can feel a little bit of discomfort. And then you want to try and just hold it there for a minimum of 30 seconds. Because what's happening, when you try to stretch a muscle, the muscle's instinctive reaction is, oh, I'm being stretched, therefore something's trying to tear me in half. So to protect itself, it kind of locks into a contraction, so a bit like these knots that we were talking about. But then when the muscle realises it's not just going to get torn and split into two pieces, it does actually start to relax those reactionary contractions, and it will start to allow itself to lengthen into the stretch. So really you need to hold them for a minimum of 30 seconds. But I'd imagine once you get to about a minute, you'll probably be either feeling a little bit bored or pretty uncomfortable because you've got to hold that stretch position. But give those a go. So in part 5 we looked at the Sissy squats exercise with the heels on the wooden block and moving the knees towards the wall. But initially it was moving, just bending the knees whilst keeping the hips locked. Now, I did actually do quite a bit of discussion on how you progress with that exercise during it, so I don't want to go back into that again, because I mentioned about how you'd eventually go towards moving the knees towards a wall and then get further away from the wall and then graduate up to the single leg version. But in terms of the actual kind of numbers that you need to be looking for on that, is a case of when you're doing the freestanding one, when you're very weak at the start and you know it near a wall, on that one you just need to get into a bend there of the knees and get to the point where if you pushed it any further the knees would just be too painful. The kneecaps, the patellas aren't getting pulled properly by the muscles. Get to that point and then just hold it. And then you need to hold it until the pain eases off a bit. The pain does eventually ease off because the balance of the quads starts to kick in properly after a certain length of time. It might be 15-20 seconds. But once that's kicked in, then you can hold it, and then you can release it and then go back. In that early stage, you can pretty much do 1 repetition per set. That is, so you might go to that pain position, hold it there for the 20 seconds until the pain eases off, come back to standing and then stop and just take a breather. And during that breather you can reflect on what happened there. Did you increase your range of motion? Did the pain ease off as much as you expected? Was I pushing my knees out properly? Was I keeping my chin in? Was I pushing the hips forward in the right way? So gaps between sets on any exercise should be a time for reflection, and you should be thinking about what you've just done, what effect it had on you, how it made you feel, because then that should, if you're being properly accountable to yourself, it will influence what you plan to do on your next set. When it comes to the progression and you're moving the knees to touch to the wall each time, I really say on that one you can't really go too far on with 5 repetitions per set. So move the knees to the wall, pretty much within about a second or so you'd come back up to standing, and you do that for 5 repetitions. Why 5? The reason why 5 is because it's a lowish number, and that allows you to do more sets while still getting a lot of work in. The reason why it's important to do more sets is more time for reflection. The more gaps you've got is the more time you can stop and think about, oh, actually, how well did that go? Was that too easy? If it was too easy, great. Well, on the next set, let's bring the block a little bit further away from the wall and make the exercise harder. Was it too hard? Am I trying to be too ambitious? Is there too much pain in the kneecap? Am I not really getting properly to the wall? Are my heels moving all over the place? If so, move the block a little bit closer. So more sets can lead to more reflection, better quality training. Then when we got to part 6 and 7, we started looking at the unweighted and then the weighted squats respectively. With those, probably similar to the Sissy squats, it's a good idea to try and do multiple sets of fairly low reps. So stick to 5 repetitions per set, trying to just improve steadily over time. So to begin with, you'll be using you'll be squatting to a very high platform, a very high box. You'll be doing the very wide knees, and you'll be sitting back very far. You know, when you can do 5 reps nicely like that, you might look to lower the platform an inch, and then get to the point where you can do 5 reps comfortably and without too much pain in the knees to a lower platform. Then once you've got to a platform that gets your legs to about parallel with the ground at the bottom of the squat, then it might be an idea to start doing less of the ones where you just sit back really far and start having the correct amount of knee travel, as we covered it in the part 6. And then when you can do them without problem unweighted, then you'll move on to the weighted style. Obviously you can't do them weighted if you can't do them properly unweighted, so don't try and put a broom or a bar across your back if you're not doing the proper form to the proper depth as in part 6. So then when you get into the weighted squats, that's a whole other kettle of fish, because now that there's weights to take into account. In the simplest sense, when you're in the novice stage, it's still a good idea to stick to about 5 reps per set, and then just try and increase the amount of weight you're lifting each session. So you just incrementally add smaller amounts to the bar. Eventually the progress you can make in that way becomes exhausted, but to be quite honest, by the time you've got to the point where the progress you can make on adding weight onto the squat bar, you'll be so far away from the patella maltracking that you had. The question is just a completely different question. You'll be so pleased that you can actually squat weight through your knees. You know, that probably seems like a long way away now, and if you've got really bad patella maltracking right now, it probably is. There is a lot of work to be done. As for the part 8 exercise, we looked at sort of control of the pelvis and flattening the low back against the ground in order to work on that pelvis control. That's an exercise, you can do that quite often. I actually end up just doing about 10 of those 4 times a week at the end of each weight training session that I do. There's no real kind of rocket science behind that one. Just try and progress it as was demonstrated in the video, and just do about 10 of them each time.